What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG TCG video. Today, guys, we are going to be going over the new Gostrick support that is set to release in the newest Yu-Gi-Oh! Main course set, Battle of Chaos. I'm very excited to be getting into this discussion with you guys, as this is the first video that I'm doing for the newest main course set. I didn't do it for the first batch that we got for this new set, which was the new Dark Magician support. I just didn't really have the time to do it, but I kind of wanted to make that up by just going over the other ones. And if you guys do want me to still do that new Dark Magician supports video, please let me know and I'll go back. I'll even look through Yugioh organization again, find that post on there, and I will do a Dark Magician support video for Battles of Chaos, but only if you guys want to see it. So with all that in mind, without further ado, let's not waste any more time and let's get right into it. So as per usual with these card game videos, I'll go over the monsters first, then the extra deck monsters, and then end it off with the spells and traps. And the first monster we're going to be going over, and the only effect monster for this set, is Ghosttrick Serene, a level 4 Dark Fairy effect monster with 800 attack and 1500 defense. Cannot be normal summon unless you control a Ghostrick monster, which is typical for the Ghosttrick archetype. All monsters have this effect. The first effect is if this card is normal summon or flipped face up, send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard. Then, if there was a Ghosttrick card among them, you can apply one of these effects. Add one Ghosttrick spell and trap from your deck to your hand, or change one effect monster your opponent controls to face down defense position. And then the second effect is once per turn, you can change this card to face down defense position, another typical thing with the Ghosttrick monsters. So we're going to look more into the first effect. So you mill 2 cards. If you get a Ghosttrick, you can essentially get a searcher for your spell and traps, or more specifically, your Ghosttrick spells and traps, or essentially have a Book of Moon effect. So honestly, that's not that bad. The first effect kind of intertwines with Ghosttrick Stein a little bit, because both of them can do the same effect of adding a Ghosttrick spell and trap. The only difference is that Stein, you have to inflict battle damage, if I remember correctly, in order to be able to activate its effect, while this card, you just have to mill a Ghosttrick card. So essentially, you have 2 ways of getting to your Ghosttrick spells and traps, which is honestly pretty nice, if I'm going to be completely honest, because you're going to have to try and get to your Ghosttrick spells and traps, because normally with Ghostricks, you want to flip them back face down, have one of your field spells onto the field, that way your Ghostricks essentially get protected, and then that way you can be able to just disrupt your opponent's board and try to go in with your Ghosttrick monsters. So to have another monster that can search for the spells and traps is not that bad at all. But if you already have it on there, its a second effect is not that bad either. Essentially having another copy of Book of Moon in your deck is actually pretty nice in my opinion. I think the only downside I would say with this card is that you do have to rely on you milling a Ghosttrick card in order to use this effect, but there is a decent chance that you're going to mill a Ghosttrick card, especially since this is a card that you 100% are going to be playing in a Ghosttrick deck. You're not going to be playing it outside of a Ghosttrick deck, so more than likely there's going to be a good chance that you're going to mill a Ghosttrick card, because it can be any Ghosttrick card. It can be a monster, it can be a spell, or a trap. It doesn't really matter. So honestly, that whole downside to it essentially isn't really there. It's just a potential chance of happening. So honestly, with all that in mind, I don't think this card is that bad at all. Essentially being a searcher for your spell and traps, or a Book of Moon effect, honestly, this is not that bad of a card, and I would be pretty surprised if you didn't tech a couple of copies of this card in your deck, whether it's 1, 2, or honestly, I can see 3 copies of this in a Ghosttrick deck. If I'm going to be completely honest, I would probably run 2 in my opinion just to try it out, and if I feel like I need more copies of this card, I'll add them, or if I don't, I'll just add 1. But I think 2 copies of this is not a bad idea in my opinion. But with that being said, that's going to be it for the effect monsters. Let's go into the extra deck. So for the extra deck monsters, we actually only have one new Ghosttrick extra deck monster, and that is the Link monster, Ghosttrick Festival. A Link 1 Dark Spellcaster Link effect monster with 0 attack with a Link of the bottom one. Its materials are 1 non-Link Ghosttrick monster. Its effect is you can also use a face-down Ghosttrick monster you control as material to Link summon this card. I absolutely love that effect, and the reason why I say that is because you can go into this this monster on essentially your first turn. You don't have to worry about having to set this monster and then wait a turn before you can actually get into this monster, but you can just do it right away. So you can already go into Ghosttrick Festival right off the bat. So immediately, I love that effect that you're allowed to be able to just set one of your Ghostricks face down and then go into your link plays right away. So I absolutely love the fact that you can do that. But getting into the actual effects, you can only use the second effect of this card's name once per turn. The first effect is your Ghosttrick monsters can attack directly while there is a Ghosttrick card in the field zone. Its second effect is when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you contribute this card, special summon one Ghosttrick monster from your deck in face down defense position. Okay, so this is actually a pretty interesting card here. So the first effect, allowing your Ghosttrick monsters to attack directly, is actually pretty nice. And if you're able to get some protection on these Ghosttrick monsters, your opponent is essentially not going to be able to do anything. And with some of the other Ghosttrick monsters as well that you're going to use to attack directly with, essentially you can use their own effects to essentially get the field spell to your hand so you can activate it to use this effect. And if you have some other cards, like, for example, if you use Serene's second capability with her first effect of flipping a monster face down, that way you can just disrupt your opponent with one effect monster on the field by flipping it face down and not have to worry about that card. So just off of that alone, I don't think this is that bad of an effect at all. You do kind of have to give yourself some sort of protection or some way to disrupt your opponent. That way you can attack directly. But other than that, that's not that bad an effect. And the second one is by tributing this card, you can essentially get a search for one of your Ghosttrick monsters. So honestly, that's not that bad either, being able to get that. And also, since it's being placed face down and you'll have your field spell more than likely on the field, that monster is not going to be leaving the field because normally the field spells will protect your Ghosttrick monsters. So honestly, that's not a bad effect either. So in my opinion, this is not a bad monster at all. I can honestly see this card making its way into the extra deck because it's also very easy to get onto the field right off the bat because you can just tribute off one of your Ghosttrick face down position monsters and then you can go into Festival and then go from your place there. So in my opinion, honestly, this card is not that bad, if I'm going to be completely honest. But with that being said, that's going to be it for the extra deck monsters. Now let's jump into the spells and traps. So the first card that we're going to be going over for the spells and traps is going to be Ghosttrick Shot, a normal spell card with the effect of you can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. The first effect is special summon one Ghosttrick monster from your hand or graveyard. Then you can change one face down Ghosttrick monster you control to face up attack position. And the second effect is you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one Ghosttrick Xyz monster you control, attach one Ghosttrick card from your graveyard to it as material. So actually, I think this is actually a pretty solid card. So not only are you able to special summon one of your Ghosttrick monsters from your hand, but it also flips up one of your set Ghostricks. That way, not only can you start just using its effects to start going in your plays, like with Serene, for example, you can try to get your Book of Moon effect going, or you can get one of your spells and traps. So that's pretty nice. And then you can immediately go into your Xyz plays, and if you need that extra material, you can just banish this card, get a Ghosttrick card. It doesn't specifically say monster, so if you just have a trap that's not doing anything in the graveyard, obviously it has to be Ghosttrick, but if you grab one of your Ghosttrick trap cards, you can attach it to that monster, and then essentially you have another Xyz material for your plays with your Ghosttrick Xyz monsters. So honestly, in my opinion, I think this is actually a pretty solid card. Easy to get your Ghostricks onto the field, and then essentially is able to regenerate more materials for your Ghosttrick Xyz monsters. I really do think that this is a pretty solid card in my opinion, especially for the Ghostricks. I think this is a card that they will definitely appreciate. But that's going to be it for the spell cards, and now we're going to jump into the traps, and this is actually going to be the last card for this video. We're going to be ending off with one trap card, and that is Ghosttrick or Treat, which, by the way, love the name of this card. It just fits so well with the archetype. I mean, if you've seen the design of any of the Ghosttrick monsters, it just makes too much sense that this card would exist in the Ghosttrick archetype. I mean, I'm just surprised that they haven't already had a card like this, but hey, hey, I guess better late than never, right? But anyway, Ghosttrick or Treat. A normal trap card with the effect of you can only activate one card with this card's name per turn. The first effect is if you control a Ghosttrick Link monster or field spell, target one face-up monster your opponent controls, your opponent can pay 2,000 life points to make this effect become set this card face down instead of sending it to the graveyard. Otherwise, this turn, that target cannot attack, its effects are negated. Also, it's changed the face down defense position during the end phase. So essentially, this is like a Fiendish Chain with a clause during the end phase that essentially gains a Book of Moon effect. So that's actually pretty nice to have something like that. The only problem that I have with this card is not even the fact that you have to have a Ghosttrick Link monster or a field spell on the field to activate this card. More than likely, you're going to have one of those two, so that's not going to be an issue. The issue that I have is that your opponent can just stop it because of its own effect. I mean, if your opponent just pays 2,000 life points, this card gets reset and essentially cannot be used anymore for the rest of the turn. And that effect right there, I just do not like. And I know what you're going to say, well, 2,000 life points, that's a good amount that you have to pay just to negate a trap. And yes, it is, but here's the thing though, if you have played any sort of Yu-Gi-Oh, most of the time your opponent doesn't care. They'll pay 2,000 life points just to stop the card, or they can use one of their own cards to stop this anyways, which, to be fair, they would more than likely pay the 2,000 life points to negate that, and then save one of their removals for later in the game. So the fact that it has that restriction on there to where your opponent can just pay 2,000 life points to just essentially negate that card's effect, I just really don't like that. But if your opponent does not negate it, let's just say he doesn't, the fact that it Fiendish Chains one of their monsters to where it can't attack and its effects are negated, and then Book of Moons it during the end phase, I absolutely love that it can do that. I just do not like the fact that your opponent can stop it so easily just by paying 2,000 life points just to reset the card, which is a good thing though still, because you just reset it so you can activate it again, and then your opponent has to think of whether or not they want to pay 2,000 life points again or just let it go through or use one of their spell and trap removals to just essentially get rid of it. So from that perspective, I can understand you still playing this, but I just don't like the fact that your opponent has the option to just paying the life points just to essentially negate this effect. I just really don't like that in my opinion. But with that being said, that is going to be it for the new Ghosttrick support. General thoughts on the new support. If I'm going to be completely honest, I think this was some pretty nice support for the Ghostrick archetype. An archetype that I really did not expect to see get support in this set. I mean, it's been a couple of years since the last time Ghostricks have gotten support. I believe the last set they had support in was Extreme Force, if I remember correctly. Someone can quote me if I'm wrong on that, but it's been a couple of years since they've gotten support. So the fact that they got support in this newest set, I absolutely love that. And honestly, I think these cards are very playable in a Ghosttrick deck. I can see all of these cards being played in a Ghosttrick deck. Maybe the only one I wouldn't see is maybe Ghosttrick or Treat, but honestly, I don't think it's a bad idea to play it because, yeah, your opponent can still negate it by just paying 2,000 life points, but honestly, I think people will take that risk, especially if you do it during late game. Your opponent is going to have no choice but to either use one of their spell and trap removals, or they just have to accept that they end up getting Fiendish Chain and then they have to essentially flip their monster face down during the end phase. So honestly, I still think Ghosttrick or Treat is still very playable, and even the other cards like Ghosttrick Shot I can definitely see being played. Ghosttrick Festival can see as well, and even Serene I can see as well. All of those cards I can see being played in a Ghosttrick deck. Now, will it make the deck meta? Definitely not. I would be very surprised, and I will say this, I will laugh my butt off if Ghostricks ever top in any sort of meta game, but I just don't think the deck got that good of support. If I'm going to be completely honest, the only time I think Ghostricks will ever top in a meta game is that they get insanely broken cards for the archetype. That's the only time I will ever think I will see Ghostricks ever top in any sort of meta game. But for casual play though, I honestly think this makes it a better casual deck in my opinion. I can see this being a pretty good casual deck if I'm going to be completely honest. And if any of you guys are trying to look for a new deck to play, honestly I would recommend Ghostrick and giving it a try, especially if you're playing casual, because I think this can be a pretty fun deck to play in the casual standards. But for metagame, definitely don't look into this deck, because even though the support is nice for Ghostricks, it's not going to put them into any meta tier. So for anyone that was kind of hoping for Ghostricks to be meta, I just don't see it happening. Unless they get some broken support later on, I just do not see them making meta anytime soon. But I do think the support was really nice for the archetype. But with that being said, that is going to be it for this OCG TCG video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are on the new Ghosttrick support. Do you think the support is good? Do you think the support is alright? Or do you think the support is not that good at all? And let me know, do you guys think that Ghostricks are going to be able to do anything? Or do you think they're just going to be at the same place as they always been? Would love to know your guys' thoughts on all of this down below. But with that being said, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.